coming this afternoon. One of Mrs. Osa's friends coming this afternoon. I think they're planning to make cookies. Although we've still got a ton of cookies from the last time they came and made some. Mrs. Osa has the thought she might take a supply of cookies to the fire department. I don't know if they still accept those sorts of gifts. Especially considering some of the people in this world are not exactly pleasant folks. But we'll see. And then, yeah, that's pretty much the plan. So again, I've renewed my model railway plans to spend at least an hour after work on days that we're not going anywhere on the railway. Now, that might entail some this map is longer than Moss Valley, but Moss Valley I call short because I was frustrated with a lot of problems with that map. The only problem I found on this map actually was over here. There's a break in these two fields. These were originally one field, and the map maker in his first update changed that, which resulted in the workers just looked at it and said, this is two fields, I don't know where one ends and one begins. So I took the effort to paint grass between them so that they are clearly separate. And at that point, the worker was fine. The worker went out there and said, yeah, I can see the edge of these fields, I can do this. That's the only problem I've had with the map, and I'm pretty sure that was one of the reasons why the map maker said on his first update, it is recommended, should I say, that you use a new save to play this. So I ignored his recommendation. But this map will go for quite some time. I'm looking to get as much of the arable achievements for FS25 as I can on this map. So we may have changes of direction on crops we're doing. For the most part, Missouri is a Midwest map. Most of the stuff that's planted here in the real world is corn and soybeans. So that is going to be a fairly good staple for what we're doing on this map. But I do intend on going quite some time. We are on episode 32, and we very well may go to episode 80 unless I run out of stuff to do, like, oh, I own everything. And then at that point, I may just say, I think we're good now. But we'll see as the farm matures how far we go. We do that. Oh, slow down. Make sure we catch the entire edge, and off we go. So normally I wouldn't do the headlands now, but the next rows are all the way over there. So I figure I can complete the headlands for this end of the map, of the field, without issues. I mean, the thing is we bought about 100 acres. I might just back up there and catch that corner. It's not like in some of the maps I've played where, there's 200 fields. There are not 200 fields on this map. There are some very big fields. So I couldn't tell you how much land I have bought this time and what percentage of the total map area it is. But needless to say, it's quite a chunk. We were about 90-ish acres of land were bought this winter in 3 fields. Now, let's see. I do watch YouTube, real life people. There is the Bernard farm. There is one farmer. His wife will help rowing the hay while he bales. That's generally the only job she does on the farm. She'll help if a mama cow dies or rejects the calf. She will bottle feed calves that have been abandoned or have lost their mom. That also used to be the kids might do that. But they're primarily a beef cattle farm. And for the most part, the cows take care of themselves. They don't, you have to move them from field to field every so often, but really the farm is fairly well, self-managing. They do plant arable crops occasionally, which obvious, and he takes care of it all. He will sometimes hire a worker to come in, colloquially speaking, and bring his truck with fertilizer spray heads so he can get his fields fertilized. But he's doing all of the farming. Yeah, and this is actually a contract hire. So the guy has a truck with fertilizer tanks on it and booms, and he just goes around, if you want me to come and work on your farm, do a task. It's a specific task thing. It's not he'll come in any time and do any job. All he does is he goes around all of the farms in the locality, and if you want your field sprayed, that's what he does. He doesn't do anything else. Farmer Bernard is quite happy to spray his fields. He's got his own sprayer, and frequently he does do his own spraying, but once in a while he hires a local guy to come in and spray the fields. Tom Pemberton, another guy I watch, is also a cattle farmer, but he's a dairy farmer. And he lives in the UK, and he has a bunch of hires that work for him. So he's not doing it on his own. His dad is still part of the farm. And he has different people come in, help milk the cows, help fix the fences, whatever needs to be done. So he actually has them coming in and working on the farm. Millennial Farmer, another guy I watch, He does, oops, wrong way. He does, it's him and his dad most of the time. Although during the winter, Dad goes off to Florida because it's nice and warm down there. And he has a couple of guys, regulars, who come in and drive the trucks, drive the harvesters, whatever is needed. And they're not full-time guys. They're only in when the work needs to be done. But Millennial Farmer has a huge farm, and so having multiple guys come and help him, he couldn't do it. He couldn't do it on his own because when it's harvest time, he needs to clear the fields before it starts snowing. When the snows go away, he needs to get out there and plant every single field. So he needs manpower during the planting season, during the harvest season. And at the rest of the year, it's him and his dad for the most part. And he does use contractors to come in, and there's one that's been around that scans his fields for rocks and then goes out and picks the rocks. Although they could just supply him the map of where the rocks are and he could go out and pick the rocks. And then there's another one that sprays the crops with a drone. He doesn't have a drone. I don't think he's looked at it and said, you know what, the farm could use a drone. It's a specialist piece of equipment that is quite expensive, and is it going to pay for itself is the main question. It's like what I do in Farming Simulator occasionally. When I start a brand new farm, I might sell the harvester, buy more fields, plant stuff, and for the first season, I will lease a harvester and header to harvest the crops, because a harvester is an expensive piece of equipment that you use for 1 month in the year or 2 months in the year. So it's kind of a cost-effective thing. It's like some manufacturers will third-party source 3D printing, because an industrial level 3D printer is super expensive, and it's an expense that they don't see the need for. And my other hobby, model trains, a lot of people these days are now 3D printing stuff, but you go onto something like Etsy, you can find people who are 3D printing things. So you could say, well, I could buy a 3D printer for $500, or I could just pay a little bit extra and have, benches and fences 3D printed as I need them. So it's what do you do yourself? What do you outsource? Can you really justify getting an expensive piece of equipment to do a task, especially if you're going to do the task once and be done with it? So if I wanted to dig up the ground in my yard and plant potatoes, for example, I could do that, but I'm not going to get a tiller. I'm not going to go down to the hardware store and buy a tiller. I'm going to go down the rental store and lease a tiller for a week and dig up the ground. It depends. I've seen 3D printing, and some things are perfectly adequate on a filament printer, but if you want little people without stripes, you kind of do better with a resin printer, but you're then multiplying the cost of your printer, 3D printer, and I might be able to say, well, I could afford a a filament printer and make sort of general stuff, but to make finely crafted stuff, I really can't afford a 3D resin printer. But then you do the math. I want 500 people printed, and I can buy them at $10 each. That's $5,000. 3D resin printer is much cheaper. And if I get a 3D scanner, I can scan people and then, make my own, 500. I can make an unlimited number of people. It doesn't matter. Because I've already got the hardware to do it. See, that's the other thing. Once you've got a thing, you can make lots of things using it. At that point, it's just, how far do you want to go? How many do you want to make? And Mrs. Osa's using our laser cutter. So she has ideas for making things for selling or gifts for friends and stuff like that. So it was a justified expense. It was also on sale. So good deal. Me, I then turn around and say, well, I can use that to do some of the things on my model railway. So added bonus. And it's a lot the same with farming. The way I play Farming Simulator, I like to have all the equipment that I use so that I can go out and do contracts elsewhere. But as a contractor elsewhere, I'm getting paid to do a job, and the farmer's not employing me. I'm just, hey, I've got a thing. Do you want me to do a thing on your field with it? Yes, I do. Okay, pay me $10,000. I'll use my equipment and do it for you. It saves him some time. He can be doing something else. What would happen with my sheep and cows? Yeah, technically, sheep and cows need taken care of. And there's not a lot of time you have to put in for maintaining sheep and cows in Farming Simulator. Horses is a different matter. Technically, I should be riding every single one of my horses, and I think I've got 10 now. So I should ride every single one of my horses for 10 minutes at 10 game minutes per day. And then cleaning them off afterwards. That's a lot of manual work. Now, there is a mod for horses that just doesn't matter. You can load the mod, and I think it charges you to have somebody ride your horses and clean them every day. So technically on this farm I have a virtual permanent worker who is looking after the horses. But yeah, if you pay attention when I'm playing, I'm not doing all of the work myself. I am hiring workers to do jobs that there's just too much for me to do. So I need someone to do the work for me. And then, in other cases, I used to watch a farmer called Ollie in the fenlands of East Anglia in England. And he did all of his taking care of his animals. So he looked after his sheep, he looked after his cows. And he had a lot of fields, and he would rent the fields out. So, there was a local organisation that grew sugar beets, and so he would he wasn't going to buy a planter to plant sugar beet seeds. He wasn't going to buy a harvester to harvest sugar beet seeds. And he wasn't going to rent or buy a big sprayer to spray the sugar beets. He just left that all up to the organisation. You come in and plant the seeds when you want, and you harvest the seeds when you want, and you spray the seeds when you want. And they paid him to use his field. So solid income from just having a field and letting somebody else use it. There's all sorts of ways that you can do things like that. Okay, now we're getting to the end of planting this field and trying not to miss anything. Let's lift that up. Let's turn that way and left of the guidance line. So yeah, seeds planted. We're now going to compact the soil a little bit, which is not a good idea. I can now line up here, do that, and hopefully we now just have a headland to do. Might have a little bit of a gap. And how's the seed? The seed is at 197, so I think... What is the time? 9 o'clock. I think I started the day about 7 o'clock. But we're now 2 hours in, and I have, well, a small patch of ground and one full field planted. Not sure how big this field is. We can find out. I can do that. Okay, and that. So the acreage, this is 40 acres, this plot of land. 31.5 is the size of the field itself. So we've just pretty much planted 31.5 acres plus 1.4. So about 40 acres of seed or 40 acres of cotton is pretty much almost in the ground. Doing this headland, I think there's a small line here. Oh, not sure. I was going to say, I think it's going to miss a sliver of ground along here. But we might just be